I've been assured that it absolutely is Monday 29th of December. This is Tino with the Celtic Exchange Weekly. There's lots going on just now. It's that time of year where everyone loses track of the date. But Celtic-wise, we know that we take on Motherwell tomorrow at Fir Park before Rangers on Saturday at Celtic Park. We'll cover it all and more in this week's Celtic Exchange Weekly. Miff, I've not seen you since the ill-fated bag of cans a couple of nights ago. What are you saying about all things Celtic right now?
Yes, so, James Paddy. Yes, a good night was had by all. That's why we only do it once a year, though, when they want to be making a habit of that. And it's amazing what a couple of wins can do. You know, there's a wee bit of optimism, albeit I think there seems to be universal, maybe worry's not quite the word, but trepidation about the Motherwell game, just given the form that they're in and the performance they put up at Ibrox.
Paddy, that's the chat. A lot of folks, two big games, absolutely. A lot of folks saying they fear the trip to Fir Park more than the game against Rangers. How you fixed on that?
Yeah, I think it's a big one. I think some of the football that Motherwell have been playing this season's been a joy to watch. Really nice to see a team feel comfortable on the ball and play that possession style football. For us, we just need to make sure that we can match that. I think we'll get more and more chances there, dare I say, if they bring the game to us. But we need to be ready and on it in the midfield to make sure that we can get through it.
James, is Wilfried Nancy going to make it 3 wins from 3?
Yes, he is. It's going to be a high scorer. I watched the highlights yesterday, and they get in behind. They're always looking to get forward. If a team leaves spaces behind, they'll get in behind. We will leave spaces in behind, they'll get in behind. But they leave spaces for us, so just get ready for some more b-ball.
The bet just now is definitely both teams to score, isn't it? That's just the world Celtic are in. I foolishly predicted 3-0 against Livy in hindsight and all that, but you can just see at this moment in time with this system, and I'm afraid with these players, we're going to concede chances, and at times we're going to concede goals. Paddy, obviously we did cover the Livy game kind of in the Bag of Cans episode. However, not sure how coherent the analysis might have been. So just to recap on that, obviously it was so important first and foremost to get a second win under Wilfried Nancy. But I think, as we know, that until reinforcements arrive, it is going to be a bit fast and loose, but I don't think it's by design as such. I don't think he wants to encourage this chaotic style of football, but he is persevering with guys that are struggling at this moment in time, and it's putting us under a bit of pressure.
It is, and naturally that's going to be the case. I think if you're trying to suffocate teams in their own half of the park and really not letting them out the first third of the park, it's a difficult game to play. You need everyone switched on to be able to do it. And then if you are leaving gaps at the back, you need some really, really quick, strong centre backs, if they're going to be playing that position, to be able to try and cover the space that's going to be left in behind. I think Sutton made some very good points. It's a system that he's still trying to implement. He won't be satisfied with the space that they are leaving behind, but I tell you what, he will be happy with what he's seen going forward, because the build-up play has been the exciting part, and I think that we are really, really punishing teams. We just need to see, again, just that being that little bit more clinical with the chances that we are creating.
I heard an XG stat earlier on today, and some folks buy into XG and some folks don't, but basically under Brendan Rodgers, our XG was something around about 1.8 goals per game, and I think we felt we were kind of scoring 1 or 2 times, by the end of Rodgers' reign. Martin O'Neill, it was 2 point something, and under Wilfried Nancy it's 3 point something, it's 3.2. So if it tells you that we are exciting going forward, we're creating chances, and anybody that's watched not just our last 2 games, you need to bring that Dundee United first half into the equation as well. We are creating so many chances, and yes, it's a wee bit here, I'm scared at the back, but it feels like one of these days, and maybe not against, a fairly high-flying Motherwell or a Rangers side, but somebody's going to lose 5, 6 or 7 goals to this team, I think.
Well, it feels like the game's fallen into a pretty distinct pattern around a lot of early action, a lot of energy expended in that pressing game that Paddy's mentioned, and then there tends to be a wee bit of a lull. What the difference was against Livy was it just seemed to be, the defending was so poor. that while you can talk all day about systems, I think there was just really poor decisions made by players on the pitch that contributed to the Livingston goals. I don't necessarily think that is a system issue. So as the manager goes along, he's obviously going to tweak that. He's going to find out the players that he can trust in the system, the players that he can't. One thing's for sure, it does ask a lot of the wing backs. So, there'll be these things that Nancy will measure as he goes along, and we hope that in January we're going to see players that are going to fit what he's asking them to do a bit better. But the nature of it is, until then, I'm expecting most games to be like the game was at Livingston.
I heard some interesting comments from Marvin Bartley. He obviously does the Radio Clyde thing just now, and he's a coach at Livingston, so he's seen it up close and personal. He said what you've just said, Miff. He said that he doesn't feel Celtic's issues are system-led, and he's a coach, and he's coaching against Celtic's system. He doesn't believe it's system-led. He believes it's individuals making bad decisions. You can look at the first goal for a series of bad decisions. Kieran Tierney makes a bad pass. Arne Engels is maybe a wee bit ahead of the ball, but maybe that's what he's been asked to do. Yang is further ahead of the ball, and then Tony Ralston doesn't engage when I think he should, and Austin Trusty doesn't get across when I think he should, and Yang makes probably a poor tackle in hindsight. So there's a lot of bodies making a lot of mistakes there, James, but I'm not entirely sure the system is causing the goals. And even the second goal, the cross comes over, Yang tries to mark the same guy as Ralston. If Yang just stays out and covers the left back guy, he doesn't get the clean strike away either. So there's a bit of everything going on.
It's maybe a wee bit simplistic from Marvin Bartley there. I think it's three things. I think it is some personnel issues. I think part of that is personnel getting used to the system, and I think it's system itself. I mean, if you look at Liam Scales looking to get on his horse against Aberdeen, he's thinking the system I'm being told to play. He's misread how much control Maeda had over the ball, but he's thinking towards the system, and that could be just him getting used to the system, or the system itself, or the individual not being good enough. So I don't think it's just one thing. Part of the criticism is it's too much too soon, but you can see it's improving game on game. And again, as Miff points out, personnel improvements will assist with that in January as well. So that's the big thing where I'm at now. We're all in. I'm sitting here with my confirmation medal from my granny on the back of it, the Serenity Prayer that I now recite before watching Wilfried Nancy Celtic, because I just need to accept it. And that's what it is. So we go into January, and if this is the system, then back and fully getting the players, and we see where we are in the summer. Because, yeah, it's exciting for sure. I would like to see your XG stats going the other way against us compared to Martin O'Neill, compared to Brendan Rodgers, because I think that's obviously taking a tick up.
Wrong. It's a valid question, and I think just from watching the games, you would think the same. The XG against Celtic is really... there's minimal difference between Brendan Rodgers. I think we concede 0.8 expected goals against us. Martin O'Neill was 0.85 and Wilfried Nancy is 0.9. It's really slim margins. We're not conceding gilt-edged chances.
This is where XG can skew things, because I'm assuming the goals scored is actually higher than that team's XG then.
Exactly. They're outscoring the XG is the bottom line. And obviously, do you know what? The main stat is goals for and goals against. I get that. Paddy?
But you look again, like at the game against Hearts, they took their chances, right? And obviously mistakes led to it. Teams have been clinical against us. Teams have been very, very short on their attempts, but they've actually just two great goals the other day for Livy. Again, coming from the mistakes, but they have took their chances. We're not really seeing, I can't think of a game really where Schmeichel, with him being in goals the most, has been really put to work under this system. And I think that's a telling sign as well, that it is error-led and it's teams just burying their chances at the back of it.
You've got another stat, and I know we're going a bit stat-heavy here, but Livy's only other shot on target in the whole game after their second goal was the one that Sinisalo palmed with both hands from the same guy, actually. Is it Montagna, the guy that scored the two goals? It was a save maybe around about an hour into the game, something like that. The guy get the shot away in the box. And that tells you that as much as it is a wee bit, ropey and a bit kind of heart and mouth, we're not giving up. It's not like, guys are finding themselves through on goal time after time. There's space around and it does feel a bit chaotic and we're giving up possession at times, but we're not gifting chances. And I'm encouraged slightly by the fact that I just think the more the players play the system, the more they'll eradicate some of the mistakes that are happening at this moment in time. But there is a concern. There's an ongoing concern just now about personnel, and there's no pleasure at all from anybody in highlighting these matters. But Tony Ralston is really, really struggling. Somebody said it to me today, and it stuck, that he's probably having as poor a season as he's ever had at Celtic, and he's had some up and down times at the club. And he's a heart on sleeve kind of guy. He gives his absolute everything. That's never ever in question. But sometimes, in this system, does expose the frailties in some players. It leaves them a wee bit high and dry. What do you think? This is maybe a wild thing, but you'll have seen the stories today. What would you think about someone like Stephen Welsh returning to play that role? Any take on that, Muff?
Yeah, no for me.
No? He's in confident mood. He's doing well at Motherwell, but do you not think he'd do a better job than Ralston?
He's in confident mood because he's at Motherwell and he's playing. When he comes back, it's Mikey Johnson syndrome. When he comes back, the same old frailties appear. Stephen Welsh, everyone has seen, any Celtic fan that's watched the games over a number of years will see Stephen Welsh probably isn't quite good enough to be a regular starter for Celtic. Now, I'm very conscious of the fact that he's had good games for Celtic. He's had some decent runs in the team, but I just think it's for everyone's benefit, ours and Stephen Welsh's, that he goes and basically does what he's doing just now. He's out, he's playing every week, he's trusted, he's got a manager that's backing him. And I sincerely wish him all the best, because he's another one with fitting into the Ralston category of always giving his best whenever he was called upon.
Yeah, it's a fair take, and I think everyone wants to see these young lads, particularly ex-academy players, going on to do well. And I think you're right. Stephen Welsh has maybe been able to go to Motherwell and just express himself and just play without the weight of being a Celtic fan. I think he's from Coatbridge, Stephen Welsh, big Celtic family, and he's made some errors in different games. He's been in and out through injury, and it was clear he was feeling the pressure of the shirt, and he's now been able to go to Motherwell, and by all accounts he's a standout. I think they're delighted with him, and maybe it's easy and lazy for me to say, well, just bring him back and slot him in. Maybe it doesn't quite work like that. But James, what do you think then of the fact that there's others waiting in the wings, the likes of Dane Murray, the likes of Jemai Simpson-Pusey, that can't get a look in for Tony Ralston, who seems to start pretty much every week under Nancy at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say he's struggling under the system, but not from anyone in this podcast, but from a lot of Celtic commentary, I'm seeing it getting quite personal to the point of a pile on Ralston. He's been asked to play a position that isn't his position, and he's doing it to the best of his ability in a difficult system that will invite trouble on you. I think we need to have a wee bit of respect for what Tony Ralston's done for Celtic over the years, and just first season in particular, and these kind of things. And that doesn't mean that he stays in the Celtic team, but just calm down the rhetoric a wee bit from some of the commentary. So all I can think is that Nancy's seen Pusey and who else did you say, Murray in training, and you would think those boys are natural centre halves and right-sided, so that would, to my mind, be a more natural pick. But they're not getting picked ahead of Ralston, and why not? So I'd at least like to see them in a game, maybe even like Saturday, a game that we've fairly put to bed. Let's see them for the last 15 minutes and see how they fit into that system in a competitive game. But we're unable to say if they would improve upon Ralston. I think the improvement has to come in January if it's not in the building.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen relatively little of Dane Murray in the bigger picture. We've seen even less so of Jemai Simpson-Pusey, Paddy, but you would think, just based on the fact that all things considered, Tony Ralston he's out of form apart from anything. He might not be capable in general to play this system, but he's also out of form and his confidence will be low, and you just wonder if someone else can step in. But let me ask you another question, Paddy, from the top end of the pitch then. The same applies really. You've got a Johnny Kenny who can score goals on occasion. We've seen him score at Hampden against Rangers. We've seen him score a handful of goals in his Celtic career so far. But the confidence is shot to pieces. And I don't think it matters who you are or where you're playing or whatever level. If your head's gone, your head's gone. And sometimes you need to come out the firing line and let someone else step in. Now, options are seriously limited. Is it Shin Yamada? Do you bring Maeda in? Do you make a curveball call and play somebody there, a Benjamin Negren or whatever? What do you think? What do we need to do up front? Will he go with Johnny Kenny again at Fir Park?
I think he will. And I would just go on the basis of that, as much as there's maybe not that cohesion in front of goal for Johnny Kenny just now, he's still getting into the right positions for the midfield to come in behind him. So he's understanding the system in terms of in terms of the cutbacks. So when you're seeing the likes of Negren, McKibben, all arriving in behind Kenny, technically he's doing his job there. He's pulling the defence away with him. It's just not landed for him. It's just not there. And I do think the confidence is shot, but for him understanding that role of attacking the box, attacking the front post, attacking the back post, I think I don't think he'll be dropped. And the sole reason is that I think he just wants a natural forward in that position. And I just think it's going at that level for Kenny just now. He's understanding of what the role is. Just needs to bloody finish his dinner. And it's just not coming for him at the moment. I do feel sorry for him. But kind of going back to players like Johnny Kenny, going back to players like Anthony Nelson, and I even bring Liam Scales into this. How many times have we said that these guys having them around the squad is fine? Yet we've cried out for us to go and break the bank on replacing the good players that we eventually end up losing. It's again just taking the money for our best players and not replacing them adequately, that we end up saying that these guys that are coming in, when there are injuries, are fine to stop the bleeding. Actually, there's too many of those type of players in our starting 11 at the moment.
Miff, it's a funny situation, isn't it? Squad management is a serious issue at this moment in time. We'll catch a wee bit of Paul Tisdale chat just shortly as well, but Tony Ralston starts week in, week out at this moment for Celtic, as does Johnny Kenny. And I think you can ask the fairest-minded Celtic fans, even just to look at what's been going on over the last few years, and you would never have called that, those two being regular starters. Liam Scales, who was a starter, now finds himself on the periphery of that. I'm suggesting that Stephen Welsh, who was very much a fringe player, potentially comes back. James would use the term, manage decline, and it's hard to argue against it, Miff, when you see some of these options that we are considering.
Yeah, and the fact that we started a cup final with both Ralston and Scales, given I absolutely do not mean that as a personal attack on them. What we're talking about here is what we would regard as quality in the squad to be starting games and big games. That would suggest that there has been an error somewhere. Whilst there has been injuries, or there have been injuries, it's actually more to do with the alternatives to those guys are deemed not to be good enough by the manager. Still only in the door and new in the door, but the situation that we find ourselves in is maddening because it's of our own doing. We've went over it many times, but the result of that is if you could pretty much have predicted that the performances would have been inconsistent when you've got the likes of Kenny, Ralston, Scales, all in and playing more than they probably should be. But that said, for all the doom and gloom that there was for a fortnight, we now find ourselves in a quite remarkable position in the league, in that we've got a game in hand, and if we win it, we can go top. So the results at the weekend mean that defeat to Hearts is effectively been reversed. We find ourselves back in the position that we were before. January is now a bit closer. I think there was a look at some run of games where you were worried if we were going to pick up any points at all. So I think there's reason for optimism. Motherwell's going to be a stern test, but if we can just manage to get to January and bolster the squad, I think it's going to make a huge bit of difference. And also what that does is it gives those players in the squad confidence. It means that guys like Ralston, guys like Scales, guys like Kenny, whose confidence are maybe taking a bit of batter. I think the issue with Kenny is more around, he's basically just going, oh shit, it's down to me now. And he's never really been in that position before. Whereas before, he's been able to contribute off the back of Iheanacho, Maeda, whoever else, and come in and chip in with goals. Now it's like, right, on you go, wee man, and it's all down to you. When maybe 6 months ago, you were looking at a loan deal and him getting out the door, and then we didn't sign, we didn't bring in who we wanted to bring in and all these things. So I think from a mentality point of view, backup coming in, or more bodies coming in to support these players will actually help their confidence in their performance as well.
Yeah, it's a completely different type of pressure that Johnny Kenny finds himself under all of a sudden through no fault of his own. He's the kind of guy that might have come off the bench at 2-0 up, for example, at home and try and grab you a third goal or whatever. Now he is, during a seriously pressured time at Celtic, there's tension everywhere, as we know, and he's been relied on as the man to put the goals away that that wins these games against the likes of Dundee United and St Mirren in the Cup, and he's not been able to do so. And with each passing game without a goal, he'll feel more and more weight on his shoulders. And I suppose a manager can do one or two things. He can continue to play him and say, "You're my guy, and I believe in you." And I think he's tried to do that. But also sometimes I think you maybe need to take the player out the firing line. On you go, Miff.
Just on that point, I think Paddy's point's an excellent one, in that you may look at the missed chances and go, geez, just put Maeda back up front. But I do think, and it was certainly apparent being at the game, Kenny's movement is excellent. And, he is playing like a striker. And it's very important in that team you have someone playing like a striker. And with a bit of luck, and dare I say, just a bit more conviction and belief in himself, he could have been sitting on 5 or 6 goals in the past 4 games. Instead, what you've got is a guy probably feeling the weight of it. And there is maybe more of a discussion to be had behind this as to, you go and scout somebody like Kenny who's scored goals at, European level for Shamrock, so he's clearly got an element of pedigree there. But if you don't have that mentality to want to be the man at Celtic, why have you been bought? That, and I'm not saying that's not a dig at Johnny Kenny, I'm just saying surely psychologically we're testing these players not just based on ability but also with that mentality as well, and that they want to be that guy. Because for me it feels like Kenny's almost cowering away from it a bit, and that's not to say that with a couple of getting off his knee or off his shin when they go in, that confidence comes back, because clearly the ability's there. It's just, Celtic's certainly not a place for shrinking violence in terms of mentality.
I wonder how much goes into that side of things. We'll all remember when Ange spoke about when a player was just about over the line, Ange made the phone call to see what their appetite was like. I think the famous one is Riley McGree. We didn't quite get that over the line, but we got Matt O'Reilly. As Miff holds up the copy of Ange Ball. Is that a Christmas gift?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
So there is a mentality required to play at Celtic, and Ange identified that. But you know what? I think every manager, very quickly realises that that's the case. And Wilfried Nancy said, just in the last week or so, he assesses all sorts of things, and also he knows it takes a certain type of headspace to be able to cut it at Celtic. And maybe Johnny Kenny has arrived with a lot of the attributes, but maybe not, the mental side. And maybe so. Maybe it's something that he'll develop. But at the moment, he's clearly struggling a bit. James, I want to pick up on some comments that Nancy made again just in the the last few days or so about the transfer window. He seemed to be kind of tempering enthusiasm, and he was asked directly about a striker, and he said something quite kind of on the fence. We'll assess things, and we'll take a look at the market. Everyone's in the market, and if we feel we need to strengthen them, we'll do so. And a lot of people were a bit despondent at that, saying, "Oh, surely he realises that we must strengthen there." I've got absolutely no doubt that Wilfried Nancy knows with 100% certainty we need strikers, but at the moment he needs Johnny Kenny. He needs Johnny Kenny at Fir Park. He needs Johnny Kenny on Saturday against Rangers, and he might need him in the next couple of games before we can get anybody in. So he has to keep Johnny Kenny confident and in his plans. If he says, "Yep, you're right, the current options are terrible, aren't they? We need to get somebody as soon as," Johnny Kenny's poor confidence goes down even further. So you can see why Nancy's been a wee bit cute there.
Yeah, it's decent man management, squad management, in terms of squad mentality from Nancy there. No issue with that at all. And also, you're not wanting to fully advertise that we're absolutely screaming for a striker when you go to the market, although anyone who doesn't know that maybe shouldn't be in football. What I wasn't so keen on was his kind of line that says, maybe at the end of the transfer window it all comes together. I haven't got 30 days of, I'm going to start at panic level 10. I can't go higher. So get some early stuff done. If Celtic aren't ready to sign players on Thursday morning, Friday morning, I'll be solely, not even just disappointed, solely annoyed that they're not ready for that.
Yeah, Celtic's work in the January window should begin the very day the summer window closes, right? So whatever it was, 1st of September, something like that, that's when Celtic get to work on the next window. You should always be 1 or 2 windows ahead, I would argue, and you would really like to think that Celtic haven't just been playing battleships in the recruitment office until Thursday comes along, 1st of January. The big question that a lot of folk are asking is our recruitment team set up accordingly under Paul Tisdale, who apparently is on holiday at this time? And listen, this is all allegedly and all that kind of stuff, but the suggestion is that he will remain on holiday and he won't return from holiday.
The game on Saturday?
Sorry?
He was at the game on Saturday.
Was that a game on Saturday? His final farewell. What I've heard is that the club weren't particularly happy with how he responded to the altercation with a couple of fans back at the stadium the night of the cup final. I don't know if it got tousy, I don't know if it got physical, but apparently Paul Tisdale gave as good as he got, which he's entitled to defend himself, of course he is. But the suggestion is that the club weren't too happy with that, and that's why he was maybe asked to go on holiday. It's all rumours, it's all speculation, but I don't know. But is it, James, just to stay with it, it's the last thing you need going into this window. You know, you need to be laser focused, and you know, you need to back the manager with the striker he needs, and maybe the right winger he needs, and the right-sided defender and the defensive midfielder. You can't afford to get distracted with, leave of absences and issues with fans, can you?
No, but if you set a culture of distraction, which Celtic clearly have, and not focused on football, then kind of why shouldn't he? You know, you can see Desmond, the execs, all wanting to have, you know, back and forth with fans and bands and media and all these kind of things. That tells you they're not focused on the one thing that they should be. You know, it's something to do, but it's not the thing to do. It should be the only thing they should be focused on. Since making such a mess of it in the summer, and if we're going to be honest, that move on top of a prior transfer window is what pushed Rodgers to all these comments about Honda Civics and all these things, which was kind of a please fire me call from Rodgers. So all of these things are distractions and they're not focused. I can only hope that they just get a grip of that in time, that we are ready to go come Thursday, Friday, because there's no time to spare.
Paddy, I think, we're living in it, right now, but I think in years to come you can make a movie about this season. When James mentions the Honda Civic comment, you forget all about that. It was this season. The Dermot Desmond statement was this season, the AGM was this season, the protests, the everything. It's chaotic, and as I say, despite the chaos, on various sides, the club need to stay laser focused, Paddy, and James is right. They've created a bit of a distraction in different ways, and they've got caught up in some of the drama, and actually they can't afford to get caught up. They need to just really hone in on the talent that the manager needs to take us forward.
Well, first and foremost, I wouldn't be giving them an idea about a film in this season, because they'll probably take that to make some more money out of something else.
A DVD?
DVD. No, that'll go straight to straight to video. I think it's all good for us sitting here and saying they need to. I feel like Groundhog Day. How many times have we done that? How many times have we spoke about coming into a transfer window that they should be ready, the targets should be scouted, the conversations should be taking place with the clubs that they're wanting to sign the player for, so that we're not maybe waiting 4th, 5th, 6th in the line to see if the player wants to come to us. The targets should be realistic. And we really need to look at the transfer model. Celtic fans have been proud of the players that we've signed for £2-3 million over the years, and they've ended up moving down to the Premier League or moving abroad for high figures. I've brought this up before. There's talent in a lot of those players, but there's also a lot of luck involved in that. If you look at the success rate in those signings, it's dwindling. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller for those success stories, for the players that we are signing and able to move on for those high fees. And that shows that there's a breakdown somewhere. That shows that the links aren't as strong as we all suspect them to be. I'm very, very cautious to say that we need to do this, we need to do that, because I just don't have the belief in what we have in place at the moment that it's going to deliver. And I tell you what, if there was all eyes on someone just now, it is Paul Tisdale, because if he is now finally out from under the shadow of Brendan Rodgers, then he needs to be able to handle that spotlight. I'm not talking about dealing with altercations in car parks. I'm dealing with the fact that your signings so far have been absolutely guff. So it's all eyes on you for this window, and if you get it wrong, you may as well leave.
I'd agree with that, and I think a lot of the frustration, this season and beyond, has been the lack of accountability at times at Celtic. And in any line of work, if you continue to fail, you move on, you pay with it, with your job. Whereas Celtic seem, the whole chat is we've had kind of 2 decent transfer windows in the last dozen, something like that, the 2 Ange windows, and there's been so many, failed windows, not just incomings, failing to move on guys at the right time as well. We've got a Dyson Maeda, Yang type situation just now where those guys should have been allowed to move on, but because of our own haphazard approach and lack of incomings. We couldn't allow those players to move. So there's all sorts of stuff going on. And Paddy's right there. If we fail again in this window, and there's got to be a reasonable chance that we fail in this window, then somebody should carry the can for that, Miff.
Listen, what Paddy mentions there, the attitude seems to be at Celtic, regardless of what the current structure is. Right, the summer window was pretty poor. Okay, right, we'll just worry about January when January comes, and then it's almost like the work starts now, forgetting how poor the summer window's been, despite all the platitudes getting given out around. Yeah, we know there's been some failings, and aye, we'll have a look into that. Right, where are the failings? Who's looking into it? What have the findings been? Who's been at fault? What are we going to do about it? Also, we've been going on about the striker we never replaced last January. We've relied in texts for the Villa to get somebody in last minute to buy out their own contract before they've come in. So, what are we saying that that's acceptable? Has there ever been any direct feedback on those issues? Why was Kyogo sold? We still don't know that. But then not to replace him. Sell Ida, not replace him. It's wild. So all those things, like Paddy said, we're all sitting here speaking like it's a foregone conclusion that we've got to go out and strengthen quickly. But, you know, I'm in Paddy's camp. I will be surprised if we do, just because it's not how we do things. So James's panic levels, unfortunately, he's maybe want to get a picture of Mr. Nicholson up on that dartboard there to start throwing things at it.
Yeah, turn your panic up to 11, James. I think I've never had any problem with selling Kyogo for 10 million. No problem with that. It's what we've never done in the back of it. You sell him for 10, sign a new guy for 5, 6, 7 and go for there.
His last performance, he should easily, if it was for VAR, he would have scored 4 goals, I think, in a Champions League game at Celtic Park. I mean, I just think, you know, no for me, Tino. I get it's good business, but this is where that comes before. You know, we were in the Champions League and progressing in the Champions League. You just can't be doing that. If you want to be a serious football team, taken seriously, you can't be selling, no matter what the return rate is, you can't be selling your best striker. And I don't care what he's done when he's left us, because that is irrelevant to me. When he was in the building, he was our best striker. We sold him. We didn't replace him. We saw how we struggled. And for me, if you want to be a serious football team, you keep your best players to try and do the best in the competitions that you're still in. As a result, we exited the Champions League. Our league form was really, really poor, and we lost the Scottish Cup. Had Kyogo been there, it could have been very, very different. Or someone else of similar attributes been there, it could have been very, very different. I get the. At the end of the day, we didn't need £10 million. And yes, we signed Jota back it, and everybody was happy that Jota was back, but Jota's no Kyogo, he's not the same type of player. So, yeah, for me, that's just another indicator. I really think the board, I said it at the time, the board thought Jota was enough. They actually thought that would have kept us all happy. You know, superstar for Portugal's back, that'll keep the yokels happy. It's just, that's their attitude towards us. And I think everyone's awake to that now. And I think that's why Paddy's just said what he said. Paddy said what he said because our deepest fears are there has been no work done. I'm probably in agreement with that, and I'll be delighted to be proved wrong.
Yeah, and we'll just need to wait and see how that goes. But, you know, you say the Kyogo thing, you know, you get that it's good business. It is only good business if you replace him. If you use the money to find a suitable replacement, not a winger in the shape of Jota, not anyone else. You lose a striker, you buy a striker, and you move on from there. And it's madness that we've not only not replaced Kyogo, we've also not really replaced Adam Ida, a guy who had patchy form towards the end, but still scored goals for Celtic, and important goals at times. And it's these goals that Johnny Kenny isn't able to score at this moment. Let me ask you about a couple of the rumours that are doing the rounds. So, Hibs-wise, Kieran Bowie inevitably kind of getting mentioned. Kieran Bowie at this moment in time would do a better job than Johnny Kenny, I think. Josh Mulligan, 23-year-old Josh Mulligan, who only joined Hibs in the summer from Dundee. So you can let me know your thoughts on those two, Paddy. There is another interesting one, a third rumour that's doing the rounds just now. Julian Araujo, at Bournemouth, ex-Barcelona, ex-LA Galaxy, known to Wilfried Nancy from his time there in the MLS, finds himself on the periphery at Bournemouth. It's a World Cup year for him. He's part of the Mexican setup, but he's played one game for Bournemouth this year. He's a right-sided defender. Profile-wise, I could get on board with that, but any comments on those lads?
Yeah, for Bowie, I like him. I think he's a good target man. Whether he would be a main striker, I don't think so. I don't think he would lead the line for Celtic. And whether he would want to come again, even on a World Cup year, to be in and out the team, I don't think so, because I think there's a chance for maybe a striker to sneak into the Scotland setup. So I don't know about Bowie. For me, I would probably say no, because I think he would just be more of a squad player, to be honest. Mulligan, I actually thought he played really well against Hearts yesterday. I thought, or 2 days ago, sorry, I thought he's a very, very quick feet, and just get stuck in. You know, he didn't really know when he was beaten, didn't really know when the tackles were coming in. He wasn't going to get back up for him. He just wanted to keep going. So there's a real drive from him. Again, I think, like, I've not seen enough to say is he going to come in and make a change to what we have already, but I liked his energy, I liked his drive, and I don't think that is something that we should back away of, especially at Celtic just now with who we have at the moment. Arujo, just to help you with that one, Arujo.
I see what you've done.
That's my standard grade Spanish coming in. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed, more in the sense of just the journey. I don't think you get the chance to. Well, Barcelona signed him from LA Galaxy, and then didn't work out for him at Barca. A few changes in management, and then it's led to Bournemouth, and I just think it's just not working for him. But as you say, World Cup year, Mexico, good plethora of players to pick from. So if we can get him fit and he can push ahead, then absolutely it's worth a try, especially with the injuries that we have on the right hand side.
I think you can attract Bowie just on the basis that he'll be on about $2,000 a week, maybe not even that. I think you can get him if you want him. I think he's got a great attitude. I thought he led the line against Hearts and showed the attitude that everyone should be deploying against them. Mulligan, I know less of, but he was good on Saturday. But for Bowie and Mulligan, I'd point straight back to our scouting department and Paul Tisdale in particular and say, we can see those players. We don't need you if that's the limit of your scouting ability. Is that really the answer? You know, we're finding two guys from just 45 miles away.
And keeping in mind, you know, we've got players in the team. So Schmeichel was a Brendan Rodgers managed him signing. Iheanacho was most likely the same. Kieran Tierney, we all knew Kieran Tierney. Jota, we all knew Jota. These are 4 guys who start every week for Celtic if they're fit. And there's next to 0 scouting. So you're thinking, what are the recruitment team doing? So whilst Bowie signing kinda would make sense, Mulligan and the guy Arujo, if he stays fit, they all kind of make sense. But Celtic should be scouring the globe. You know, we should be able to go far and wide to bring in talent that nobody's heard of. So, and I'm not just saying sign a guy from the other side of the world for the sake of it, but where's the creative thinking? Miff, I'll come to you in a second, but James, just to finish on Kieran Bowie, Paddy was saying, I'm not sure if he comes and becomes first choice at Celtic. Actually, I would debate we need 2 centre forwards. We're not in the market for one. We need 2, and maybe Bowie forms the backup. Miff, what do you think?
Well, so I think Bowie, am I correct in saying that he came through the Fulham Academy, which has been a pretty prolific breeding ground for recent Celtic signings in years, so I don't know what the in would be there, but I think that would increase the chances of us going for him if he had that type of pedigree. Mulligan and Bowie would both be yes for me, because I think they would add to the squad, and I know people out there will sigh and go, oh, we should be looking to broaden our horizons and sign better. But I think both currently would add to the squad. I actually think if Bowie signs just now, he starts, albeit I take your point, we should be after someone else. Arujo, I know very little or next to nothing about. But you mentioned earlier, Tino, there about we should be scouring the globe. If Tisdale's to be believed, he's put 129 right backs out in front of the manager, and we've not chose to pick one. You know, it never has it been more required for us as a fan base to hear directly from our board as to what we do around transfer planning. We just need to hear about it. It cannot be taken on trust that that department is structured correctly and doing its job. Simple as that.
If you're
And I
putting
think
129 right backs in front of the manager and he's knocking them all back, then you haven't got the brief. You haven't listened to the brief.
possibly the ego of the manager was just so much at play. You know, Brendan Rodgers was of a mindset that I don't care who he puts in front of me, stick the next Cafu in front of me, I'm saying no to this guy. And that might be where the breakdown happened. That, you know, everyone will have heard the fact that Paul Tisdale appears to be Dermot Desmond's guy. And by the end, we know that Desmond sided with Tisdale over Rodgers. And maybe it didn't really matter what players were getting put to him. It might well have been 129 really decent right backs. But as Miff says, there's no transparency. We just don't know. And the spotlight is on Paul Tisdale more than ever. If he is to remain in charge for this window, there's no hiding place. And by the last day in January, first day in February, we'll see exactly, his workings, and we'll see how well he has recruited for Wilfried Nancy and for this unique style. There's no hiding place, and we'll get some answers in the coming weeks, hopefully before the end of the month, but we might need to wait, Paddy.
I would go to say I don't know how long Tisdale's contract's for, but for me it's not been a great year and a half. So if you can get one window out the back, like out the bag, and it's a successful one, great. But still, questions got to be asked about his operation, how he has been working. And I know where you're coming from in terms of the Rodgers and maybe the Eagles played a part, but we still signed players that Rodgers didn't want to sign, and we still signed players that were projects for the club, and we can see that the quality of those players is just nowhere near it. I know a few people have said that Inamura hasn't been given a chance. In some of the games he played, he looked like an assured passer of the ball, but I think no one has went near him. No one, any good manager with a footballing brain has not went near him. And I think also the same with Shin Yamada. He's brought into that start the squad out of sheer necessity, nothing else.
Yeah, and I think the suggestion is now that Hayato Inamura is heading back to FC Tokyo in Japan, which it just beggars belief. Why waste that guy's time? Bring him halfway across the world, and he'll have got an improvement in his wages, of course, and all that side of things. But why are we wasting time on project after project like that? Which that one was doomed before it started. Anyway, we could go on about the failed signings. The hope is that in the coming weeks we're talking about some guys that could potentially be some big successes for Celtic. Let's lighten the mood slightly by reflecting, not for too long, on Saturday night's Bag of Cans episode. For anyone that doesn't know, once a year at this time of year, we go out and catch a game or a Celtic game or whatever, and then head back into the studio, spark a bag of cans, and really just talk nonsense for a while. And we send it out. Sometimes there's more editing than others. There was quite a lot of editing this time around, but it's good fun. And we've done that on Saturday. The only place to catch that is on our Patreon. You can catch all the information at patreon.com/Celtic Exchange. Miff, would you like to say anything about your behaviour on Saturday night?
No, other than I absolutely nailed my song at the Horseshoe.
He did.
But
Doing a storm.
I was fairly well oiled by that time. Like I said, annually is probably just about enough for me. I'll be in no rush to do that again anytime soon. I had the absolute fear when I woke up. Thank God for editing.
Yeah, Miff already dreading Christmas 2026. Paddy, we know the way it played out on the day. Myself, Paddy and James, we went out to watch the game in town. Miff was at the Livy game and very much playing catch up. But Paddy, you've got to admire just how quickly the boy caught up.
Didn't take him long. I think the carry out spoke volumes. The half bottle and a few wee tinnies of Jack Daniels and Coke helped him right out. I think it speaks volumes of the state where we're all in when we've not even made it to the studio tonight. To do the show recording. We're all doing it for our kitchens and living rooms, but a brilliant wee night, and just a nice wee show to just let out a bit of extra steam with a wee bit of oomph, I suppose.
If you want just one reason to get onto the Patreon and watch that, it's for Miff's Craig Gordon rant. It's a phenomenal piece of TV. Phenomenal.
The thing about these things that worry me, right, is that we as a group would come across in any way inauthentic, because by doing it a second time, you feel that wee bit of, all right, it needs to be funny, or it needs to be lively, or it needs to be whatever. However, turns out if you just stick a half bottle and a couple of cans in there, authenticity's got to on it. So, aye, it's nice it's been so well received, I suppose, because all it is, as it's always been, is just a bunch of mates sitting together talking about Celtic.
Yeah, so great fun all around, and thanks to everyone on our Patreon who sent in suggestions and some talking points for the show, and some of the brilliant feedback. Some of the comments between today and yesterday are amazing. So thanks to everyone who played their part in making the Bag of Cans episode what it was. As I say, you can catch that on our Patreon at patreon.com/Celtic Exchange. It's also the only place where you'll get our post-match from Tuesday night's game against Motherwell and pre- and post-match shows for the big Rangers game coming up on Saturday, so be sure to check that out. Lads, let's finish off this kind of last section of the show by talking about those two games with particular focus on Motherwell, given that that's just on the horizon. James, how are you feeling about that one? I caught some of the stats before coming on. Motherwell haven't beaten Celtic in 35 meetings. The last 35 meetings, they've drawn 5 and lost 30. This is I would say a slightly different Motherwell at this moment in time. They're playing with some confidence under their new manager, and they're kind of going between third and fourth in the league between them and Rangers. So they're a far better side than maybe we've faced, but that's a hell of a start.
Yeah, I think that only the last fixture is the only one you can look at with this manager, because he's, Motherwell are a completely different prospect than what they were for years past, So, and they were settling in, they've been through that period of like they're getting all these plaudits for playing nice football, but they couldn't really buy a win. They were just drawing up a whole string of games and losing to us, but they've since obviously turned that around. I think they are less expansive than they were initially. Maybe like, Celtic under Ange and things like that, you settle into how adventurous you really want to be versus how many games you want to win, and they've probably just about got that sweet spot. Some decent talent in the squad as well, obviously a decent manager. So I don't really care so much for last season and beyond, 35 games and all that stuff. And they ran as hard in the last game, and it'll be even harder tomorrow night. It's that kind of like, there's a lot of pressure on this game because you win that. If you win by a few goals in particular, you go top of the league. It's a dark December night. It's going to be freezing cold, maybe even a wee touch of snow. So it's going to be, all the atmosphere, the under the lights at Fir Park that don't show you where Jota's offside or not. So VAR could play its part and all these things. You Rangers playing Hibs? No, it's not
St
right.
Mirren.
Who are they playing?
St Mirren, I think.
I've seen the refereeing roster for that game. That's a Rangers win all day. Rangers win all day. And while I'm staying on referees, if you want to laugh, watch the sports scene highlights from Saturday night, where it's former Rangers employee
Stephen Thompson.
Stephen Thompson and current Rangers manager Clayton Crichton. Right, so that's your panel, and the two of them talk around the potential Motherwell penalty without saying it's a penalty. They are absolutely squirming to not say it. It's comedy gold itself.
It's hilarious. It's absolutely brilliant. I've seen that. They just can't commit to it, can they?
Yeah, they're saying it without saying it. Just say it.
Normally in my day, I've when that leg's dangled there and there's contact, and that was it.
Yeah, it just let it drift, aye.
The last Rangers game then, James, you've mentioned it, so it was 3-2 at Celtic Park. We opened the scoring with an Iheanacho penalty, but found ourselves 2-1 down in the game. Benji Negren, your favourite, James, he scored in the 69th minute, and it was Daiz Maeda with a kind of stooping, diving header on the 92nd minute. It was just ahead of the international break at that time back in early October. It was a win that we thought might have propelled us, Paddy, under Brendan Rodgers, but as we know, that all fizzled out. But the other stat is that we've won our last 11 games at Fir Park. You'll be there tomorrow. Miff's going along as well, I think. Are you confident about it?
I think it's going to be a tough game of football. I'm confident that we'll score. I'm confident, but I'm not too confident that we'll keep a clean sheet. I think it's going to be a back to the walls game at points, just in terms of the way that they've been playing football. And I know there's a lot of Celtic fans that will be out there saying, like, oh, come on, this is Motherwell we're playing, but this is a bit of a different animal from what we've seen from them this season. Credit to them. I think they really put a lot of pressure onto Rangers for the first hour of the game. I think the goal kind of took the wind out their sails, and it became a bit more dictated until obviously the penalty incident. They've had a great season. They've had a really good season. So I think that we we need to respect that. We need to go in realising there's definitely fragility in this team, and we need to make sure that we play to our strengths and go and get the victory. I know you're obviously going to go on and speak about Rangers today, but this game is massive tomorrow night, massive, if we want to really start to put a bit of a fight back to get to the top of that table.
Yeah, and it's just in the bigger picture, it's two huge games in the, at the moment, very early career of Wilfried Nancy at Celtic. Should he win those two games, it buys him all sorts of time and it buys him all sorts of credibility that he could be the man to take us to the title and potentially beyond. The opposite also applies, Miff. You lose those two games and the pressure comes piling back on top of you again.
Yeah, it does, but again, I think with the two victories, I don't think anything's got to change now. I agree with James on that. Like, regardless of what happens in the next two games, we have what we have until at least the end of the season. So, whatever gripes that we have with the board, possibly even with the manager, members of the playing squad, whatever it is, I go back to what I said, even at the start of the season. There has been no Celtic team in modern recent history that requires more support than this squad currently do. So it's somewhat ironic it's coming against the backdrop of protests and things like that, but the manager and the team really need the support.
Yeah, I'll stay with you for a second, Miff, because you point out the fact that a win takes us... Does it take us equal, Paddy, with Hearts? Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Equal. But we need
4
to
goals
win by...
Well, there's 4 goals at the moment, so we need to win by 4 or 5, I think.
Yeah. So on that note, Miff,
5.
I can see this Celtic team scoring 4 or 5. I'm not sure if I can see us not conceding 2 or 3. I'll ask you for your scoreline prediction.
Don't. I am going 2-1 Celtic.
James?
I think Nancy's too interested in like a 2-1 Miff. It's not really his style. I think given how expansive both teams are and that there's talent in that Motherwell team, they can score goals for sure. I think it is going to be a 5-3-ish kind of game. I'll go 5-4. 5-4 Celtic.
5-4, jeez. I think Wilfried Nancy doesn't generally deal in 2-1s. So I'd be on board with that. Paddy, I'm going to go 3-1. I think there's goals in it, but hopefully more for Celtic, less for Motherwell. What do you think?
I'm going to go 3-2. I think it'll be tight tomorrow.
A sensible 5-4.
Aye.
Yeah. But fun all round. Yeah, listen, whatever it is, you can't deny that it's entertaining. Is that the right word? / terrifying, but it's entertaining for neutrals. But we're not neutrals, so we'll just need to sit tight on it. Let's touch, not for too long, we'll be doing a full preview of the Rangers game later in the week, but obviously it's a huge game. It's, the New Year derby is always, fairly significant. And Paddy, we started last year with a horrendous result in this fixture, and it came out the blue. It shouldn't have happened either, and we must avoid any sort of repeat of that.
Absolutely. I think our attitude going into the games against Rangers lately just haven't been what we expect, been what we need. There needs to be a little bit more dig to it, in my opinion. I think we've just been moved about too often from them. You had the cup final last year in December, and then the game at Ibrox that was really, really damning performances, to be honest. We then see what was a bit better at Celtic Park, but we're still going to lose 3-2 under Ferguson. So just not good enough. But then when I watched us against them in the cup final, the cup semi-final there, I actually thought we should have been out of sight. I really did. I thought that they couldn't lay a glove on us, and I know they went down to 10 men, but even before then, I thought we were too quick for them, and we moved really, really well on and off the ball. And I've got hopes that this is a really, really poor side at Rangers at the moment. I've got hopes that if we go and get the result tomorrow, the confidence will be flying and they come out the traps quickly on Saturday and go and put them to the sword. But it's interesting. I think my confidence and my delight and my hope for Saturday all just depends on how tomorrow night goes.
I think that's a really valid point. I think should Celtic get the win against Motherwell at Fir Park, the feel-good will just carry them right into that fixture. It's a home fixture. You'd expect a pretty, fervent home support. And if Wilfried Nancy can make it 3 wins from 3 against what we all agree is a pretty decent Motherwell side at this moment in time, they should have all the confidence they need to go and crack into this fixture against Rangers.
That's what's at stake in the Motherwell game, that momentum continuing, because, you know, the last game in Martin O'Neill's tenure against Dundee was fairly turgid stuff. I think we were hanging on a bit at Hibs as well, so it's not like we were playing kind of free-flowing football. Some of the stuff that we've played under Nancy has been good to watch, but there's obvious concerns there as well. It also seems to be a wee bit of tendency to break into a game of two halves. The way that we're playing, we almost need to kind of make hay while we're playing well and convert our chances. We haven't always been doing that. One thing's for sure is I feel that we really have to do it against Motherwell, because they'll be sure to put us under pressure in the game as well. What's at stake is another good performance continues that belief in the manager from not only the squad of players but the fans as well, and it keeps everyone united. You know, nothing unites fan bases and football teams like winning games of football, and that's, if we keep that up and we make it 4-4 against Motherwell and Rangers, then you would be looking at strengthening in January and the momentum being back with us again. You need to remember, getting into that Hearts game at Celtic Park, you know, we were the ones with a bit of momentum. Martin O'Neill had steadied the ship and we'd got to a cup final, and we've almost given it away a bit, because of the timing of the change and all, everything that's came with that and everything we know about. In fairness, we seem to have the cup finals been and gone, but we're 2 for 2, and we're getting into this in as good, or the best possible shape we can be. It's really now down to the players. It's down to the players. You mentioned earlier, Paddy, just about a bit more familiarity with the system. So hopefully what we'll see now is a bit more cohesiveness and a bit more, just a bit more consistency in the levels of performance, and hopefully playing better in a game for a bit longer rather than just in maybe some bursts. So that's what I'm hoping to see. And I'm going tomorrow night. I've got tickets for me and the boys, so we'll be there. So fingers crossed I'll be walking back up Shields Road with a smile on my face.
Yeah, here's hoping. There's I take a bit of hope and a bit of confidence from the fact that Wilfried Nancy, James, has been allowed to spend a bit more time on the training pitch with these players during this festive period. It's just allowed that time at Lennoxtown, and I think that can only benefit the system. We've seen glimpses of what it could be, and we've seen some really exciting passages of play. We've not yet stitched together a full 90-minute performance under the new manager, and that would certainly be the hope, you know, from Fir Park and beyond. How confident are you heading into the game against Rangers?
Very, very in line with Paddy. Tomorrow night tells us an awful lot about character and how much they've understood of the system and how much they can now deploy from flashes into patterns and all that good stuff. I do have a concern about energy. I think you expend a lot of energy in this system, and we've seen it where the performance or the energy levels just kind of go off a cliff. I think Nancy's a wee bit sluggish on the subs as well. He's maybe doing 65, 70, 75 minutes when you can see a player's, you know, done their tank by maybe just before 60. So I think he needs to be careful with that. The difficulty with that is you've gone from a poor Aberdeen and a poor Livy to two, you know, the next two games are better teams. And if they've got the energy and ability in the last half an hour, they'll punish you. So we can't really risk that tail off. So whether it's conserving energy or making subs at the right times, I think that's going to be a crucial part to picking up 6 points in these next two.
I think part of Wilfredo's approach is just be 5-0 up by the 60-minute mark, and then you don't need to worry too much about your subs. But
that's my approach as well. It's the only way.
But we've not had that so far.
and then that's why I'm going 5-4.
Yeah. James, let me pin you then on a scoreline for Saturday. Scoreline prediction for Rangers.
3-2.
Miff.
2-0 Celtic.
Paddy. Clean sheet.
Wow.
Paddy.
4-0 Celtic.
Oh.
Gotta love that. I'm going to go for 3-2 Celtic. I think, again, similar stuff to Hibs. I think there's goals in it for us. We're also potentially liable to concede a goal or two here and there. But I think for the most part, it might be a wee bit, you know, hope overhead or heart overhead. We've all gone for 2 wins from 2 at the end of the day. So I'll take any sort of win at Fir Park. I'll take any sort of win at Celtic Park, and we can kick on from there. Lads, as always, been another kind of lively show, another busy show. James, I'll come to you for your final thoughts.
Yeah, so it's just, when all said and done, we're Celtic fans that want to see Celtic win, and there's a lot of stuff going on beyond that, management board, fans, whatever kind of thing. There's stuff to be addressed there, but it's supporting the team. As Miff said, this team really needs our support, so back them we will, and I'll be right behind them tomorrow night, and even more so on Saturday. So 6 from 6, please.
Yeah, that'll do. Paddy, yourself?
Yeah, much of the same as what James is saying there. Just let's go and try and get the win tomorrow night at all costs. How difficult it will be, that's up to us. It's up to the players, as you mentioned, Tino. They could really make it an easy night for them if it clicks, and I hope it does. I'd like to see, if it is Johnny Kenny, I'd love to see him score. I'd love to see that for him. I'd still love us to go and strengthen this team as well. I think it's an element of that this whole team, regardless if you're not even in the shout for getting into the squad, this whole team need to stick together for the next 5 months, because it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, just to stress what you've said, Paddy, I think all of us and the fan base, on a wider score as well, would love nothing more than to see Johnny Kenny find that form. And if he's a guy entrusted against Motherwell at Fir Park, then we'll be fully behind him, and hopefully he can be the man that gets the all-important goals. Miff, your final thoughts?
Yes, yet another big week that's going to encompass the end of 2025 and the start of 2026. It's been a very indifferent year overall. Yes, we've won the league, but I think we could certainly see a slide coming in the overall performances and the amount of points we were picking up, and it's culminated in the manager, Brendan Rodgers, leaving. We've then had the joy of a wee renaissance for Martin O'Neill, which was fantastic, and now we've got something that's completely brand new. And like anything new, at the start it can be a bit scary, but the more you get used to it and the more that you see the benefits of it, you can actually start to get on board with it. I was quite strong at the start where I felt that the whole Nancy thing wouldn't work. Whilst I still have my misgivings, I'm a bit like James, is where I'm saying, right, okay, well, this is going to be it for the foreseeable, so what do? You want to go there, you want to back the team, you want the team to do well, you want Johnny Kenny to score goals, you want Ralston's form to pick up and improve. We want all these things to happen. So we're going to the game tomorrow night with a good bit of hope that we keep up the momentum, and that takes us into 2026 and our fiercest rivals.
Yeah, lots to look forward to. So 2 massive games, and 2 games that will go a long way to telling us where this season is going to play out under Wilfried Nancy. Thanks to James, Paddy and Miff for joining us here for this one. Thanks to everyone who supported Celtic Exchange all throughout this year. You'll get much more from us this week on Patreon, as mentioned, patreon.com/Celtic Exchange. It is the only place, and thankfully the only place, where you can watch the Bag of Cans episode. But if you get us there, you'll get us in the next few days for the different pre- and post-match shows. Otherwise, have a brilliant new year. We'll see you next week for the next one.